everybody. I'm your host, Jaime Soretta. On this podcast, we celebrate everything local. And our next guests also celebrate local Arizona food and beverage. I'd like to introduce to you Eric Walters and Luke Irvin of A Taste of AZ podcast, magazine, and festival. Hello, fellas.
It's nice to be here.
Yeah, Thank you for being
us.
here. Tell me a little bit about, first of all, how you two came together in this project.
Well, I think Luke should take that one. He was the one that reached out to me initially. So.
Yeah, it was borderline a traumatic experience. No, just kidding. So I was kind of finding a new pathway for a direction that I wanted to go. I had, at this point in time, I had left college, but built out kind of a skill set of media production, website development, and a lot of things that, kind of have come into play today. And so I found Eric. At this time, he was doing Tap That AZ podcast, which was an Arizona beer podcast, which I'm sure he'll expand on a bit. But we linked up at Real Wild and Witty Beer Festival, which is put on by the Arizona Craft Brewers Guild. And he was trying to run his podcast while selling merch, while running around and grabbing some beer samples.
And you said, that's the kind of guy I want to work with.
Yeah, exactly.
He's got the hustle.
Yeah.
But he had some sweet merch. People were loving it. And he had, his little payment processor. And so basically, within 20 minutes of us meeting, I was slinging merch for him and running to grab beer samples while he's doing his podcast and just kind of helping him out. And it was very clear that he had a great reputation amongst all the brewers that he had known. I mean, Eric is an electric guy. If you've met him before, which you have, then you'll know that his personality is, people just love him right away. And so I was having fun, even though...
You blushing, Eric?
Yeah, right?
He's blushing a little.
And I don't normally talk this,
Don't say these things to him.
Exactly. Yeah,
Go ahead, look
we're
him
much
in the
more
eye.
stern.
Tell him how lovely he is.
Yeah. No, I mean, you'll find out right away that Eric is just a great dude. And so as I'm running around, I'd say, hey, I'm working with Eric today. He mentioned to just pick out a sample for us, and I'd be like, oh yeah, absolutely, and get excited just to send something over to him. And so throughout the day, he's interviewing lots of really cool people, and I had recognized, he has a lot of really good connections doing Tap That AZ podcast, and so. Within maybe a month or two, we had a quick meeting over at the Scottsdale Quarter, I think it was, and decided we're going to do a beer book, which is this book that you see right here. A quick word about the book. It's no longer available because we've sold out of all of them, but it released in 2019. It features about 40 different Arizona breweries and some cideries and whatnot. So it really is kind of a physical manifestation of the podcast that Eric was doing at the time. Just highlighting the stories of these places and one of the beers that they have. Eric, I'll kind of defer to you to talk a little bit more about what Tap That was.
Yeah.
Well, tell me how you got started with the podcast, because how long ago was that? I remember seeing you out somewhere, and podcasting was kind of new-ish.
Yeah.
Like, I guess they're doing something live over there.
Yeah.
And I took mental note of the name, and I followed you. So tell me about how that began.
Yeah, absolutely. So it's kind of funny. My grandma always told me I was meant to do something special, right? And that's what grandmas say.
Yeah.
But I believed her, right? So I grew up in Ohio. Actually, the town I grew up in was where the train blew up, like the chemical train last year. That was my hometown.
Okay.
So not a lot going on there. And I always had this drive to do something creative. So just throughout the years of working different jobs, just was always trying to find this creative path. And my friend and I started a music podcast in 2015, I think. So, we would do a Zoom session and we would talk about music, and we'd have topics that we would talk about. But we were always drinking too. And we had a segment called "What the F Are You Drinking?"
Oh, okay.
So
what were you drinking?
Beer? I was mostly drinking local beer. So I was really into craft beer at the time. This is 2015. So in 2011, my in-laws lived in Flagstaff, and we were there when Mother Road opened.
Yeah.
Like we were one of my first writing experiences was a Yelp review for Mother Road, and so. Yeah, I loved craft beer. I loved the culture of it. It just had a different vibe to it. So I was always drinking local beers. So in our podcast, we would post on social media, and I would tag local breweries. And Matt from Peoria Artisan, now owner of Barley
he's
and Smoke,
awesome. Yeah, great.
He reached out to me, and he's like, "Hey, if you ever want to do a live podcast, he's like, come into our tap room. We'd love to have you." And I didn't really know how to do it. I didn't have the equipment at the time, so I told my wife, I'm like, "Hey, this is something. Like,
can I buy some equipment?
Yeah, exactly.
Can we buy some equipment?
Yeah. And I convinced her to, and she saw this spark in me. It was like, all right, this is something. So I bought the equipment to be able to to go to places, do podcasts in person. So started just traveling around the state and interviewing people and taking a different approach, not so much. And with a lot of what we do with the magazine too, it's storytelling, right? We want to tell the story of these places. And that's why I think I really gained the traction that I did, because I wasn't, coming in undercover with a hat on and critiquing things and all this. It was just more like, I want to hear your story. I want to sit here and talk to you. And through the jobs that I had throughout the years, a lot of sales experience. So I just naturally found that I had a natural knack for interviewing people and letting them talk. So right now it's weird for me because I'm talking a lot and I'm not used to that. I'm used to you being
You get the
talking.
floor.
I know.
You get the floor. How fun.
Yeah.
Maybe you should compliment your partner here, because partners in business for how long now?
Since 2018.
2018.
Yeah, June of 2018. Yeah.
So that's a long time.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it
Doesn't feel like it either.
It
Which
really
is the
doesn't.
funny thing.
Yeah. I mean, it was when he reached out to me and I saw his hustle, because before that beer fest, my wife was like, who's going to be at your table with you? And I'm like, just me. And she's like, how are you going to do the podcast and sell merch and go get beer samples and stuff? I'm like,
Oh, no.
I don't know.
You're like, are you available?
Yeah, she wasn't. She's like, no. She's like, no. So Luke showed up and right away he's pulling people over, giving them stickers, selling merch. And so right away we both just knew that we clicked on a very base level, as far as work ethic. And, over the years we started to realize like how much, how different we are in so many ways. But when it comes to like the important things like values and work ethic and those things, we're very aligned, which
it's
has been
very
great.
helpful to have a partner who is different in many ways.
For sure.
I found co-anchors. As a co-anchor, sometimes it's like, I can't do that story. Will you go handle that interview?
Yeah.
And she'll handle it like the queen she is, and I get to take a moment and handle the thing that she doesn't want to handle.
For
so
sure.
it's definitely beneficial. When I talk to business owners, they talk about how important it is to find the right partner.
It's hard. It is hard. We both went through ones that just weren't the right fit for one reason or another. But it's all experience. You experience those things, and we talk about it all the time. I'm like, oh yeah, that reminds me of when I was doing this, when we were working on this project, and he's like, oh, that reminds. So we've learned from those things, and it really makes us appreciate each other even more. I mean, there's an age difference of, I'm 45 and he's 28, but we're more like brothers. Because he's more mature than his age, and I'm less mature than my age.
So you meet in the middle somewhere, right?
Exactly. Yeah. We're an average age of about 37, I would say, between
that's
the
perfect.
Yeah, maybe even a little bit younger. I definitely bring the older years into that in terms of just my mentality. But I would say, finding a business partner, it really is, like a marriage of your careers, essentially.
Yeah.
And
of your livelihood.
Exactly.
Money.
Yep. And, things can get contentious at some point. Luckily for us, I think one of the most important things is that we share very similar values. Like Eric mentioned, our style is not really heavy critiques and things like that. And, there's definitely a place for that out there. But for us, I don't really want to know about what's bad about a place. I want to know what's good about a place. That's, I'm not going to go in and order the thing that I heard was not delicious. So it doesn't really do me much service. And, in terms of our personalities, we are definitely very different. But the fact that we have similar values down to kind of our core is really important for our working relationship.
So, Eric, you host the podcast.
Luke does too.
Luke does too?
Luke,
And
yes.
You have a production company, Luke?
Yep. So before I met with Eric, as I mentioned earlier, it all kind of started when I was in college. I had built a website for someone, and they needed photographs, and then they needed video, and then they needed someone to kind of manage it. So pretty quickly, just on my own time, I built out these skills, watching videos online and taking courses and things like that. A very different direction than I was going in college. And it got to the point where I just kind of wasn't really showing up to classes all that often and felt guilty about, the money that is the investment of college. And so I kind of had to talk with my parents, and I'm like, hey, look, I found this other direction, and very blessed. Shout out to mom and dad.
Yeah, shout out to mom and dad always.
Yeah, right?
Yeah.
They,
and grandma too,
yeah,
for
for
letting
sure.
you know.
Absolutely. But they were like, they were definitely nervous, and they're like, okay, I don't know what this is going to look like, but I've always kind of gone my own direction, gone to the beat of my own drum. And so they were like, we'll support you for a little bit longer, help you bridge that gap, but ultimately you're going to be on your own. So this is a risk you're taking. So just built up all those skills. And now I work with, different restaurants. A project that we've done together is actually a company that provides school lunch services, across the country, and they are actually partnering with local chefs to have them craft up recipes. And so they've actually tapped on the shoulders of Corey Upwell, the winner of Chopped, one of the hottest new fine dining restaurants here.
Chef of the year, foodist chef of the year.
Yeah, he has that multi-course restaurant up
Yes,
in Scottsdale off of Shea.
Scottsdale
multi-course,
and Shea,
it's called course.
basically.
Yeah. Isn't that funny? He knew what he was doing when he named that thing.
And I mean, he is he's an incredible dude because his creations blow my mind all the time. And I mean, he like an average visit to his restaurant, I want to say, is like $100 or more. But the recipe that he made for this project was a black bean tostada.
Ooh,
that was one of the most delicious things I've ever eaten. Yeah. And it was entirely vegetarian, very healthy. And it tasted like beef because of the way that he seasoned it. Wow. And so that, that's kind of what I almost consider my day job a little bit, is doing a lot of those things of, creating content for clients and stuff like that. Whereas this, I really get to creatively spread my wings.
What is the name of that project, that food project?
That one, so it's called the Local Chef Series by SFE is the organization.
They're based out of Scottsdale.
Oh,
yeah, cool. my best friend, one of my best friends, Chris, he's a neighbor of ours, and of years of having some beers in the backyard and of us trying to figure out like how we could work together. It's like, dude, wouldn't it be cool if we could do this? Wouldn't it be cool if we could do this? And finally, we're doing it.
Yeah.
So, it's and it brings a lot of value to them because SFE does all of their lunches are like scratch made lunches. So these are really good school lunches. So they want to implement the chefs into this and create these. We went to St. Louis a few months ago, met with a couple chefs, and they did like a chicken adobo recipe. The other girl did a veggie quesadilla, I think.
But it was the best veggie quesadilla I've ever had before.
Yeah, for sure. They're the simplest things, and when you get these chefs that just know how to work the ingredients, know how to, we're going to put a little bit of this in it. It's like, wow. Like I try that stuff at home, and I'm like,
well, yeah. Coming from two guys who like to cook, and we kind of have somewhat of a knowledge around it, being around so many wonderful chefs and whatnot. It never ceases to amaze me the difference between what I'm able to cook and what these, talented career chefs are able to put together. I mean, it sounds obvious, but a veggie quesadilla tasting the way that it did was surprising for sure.
It was amazing.
I'm not sure I picked up anything from interviewing chefs over the years.
Oh, really?
I'm still not very good in the kitchen. But why would I bother when the chef can handle something like now I'm thinking about this bean tostada. How am I going to get that bean tostada? I got to check it out.
Go to Corey. Go to Course and ask him for the bean tostada.
Yeah, right. He would probably oblige.
He would. Yeah.
But like another example, actually for that project was Chef Sasha Raj, who had 24 carats. And I mean, just one of the most incredible people that we've ever met. I mean, does so much for the community. And she made vegan mac and cheese, and she was putting nutritional yeast in there and using cashews to make the sauce and all this stuff. And I tried to make it at home, and it just tasted like soupy blended vegetables. And I'm like, that's why I don't try and make these types of meals.
Yeah, I get it. Well, that's why they are so talented and good at what they do.
Absolutely, yeah.
And talking about talented and good at what you do, this magazine is beautiful.
Thank you.
When did the magazine come into fruition?
2021.
Yeah, so the beer book went live in December of 2019. At our first book signing is when kind of the announcements of the shutdowns began to get floated around. So we
had a whole kind of almost like a tour, like a book signing tour. Right, we're gonna do it. We went to Sunup when Sunup was open, and we did some like these special beers, and so it was really cool. Like because we had a book signing, we had these specialty infused beers, and we were riding high. Like I remember that night, like when everybody left, we're like, dude, this is awesome. Like this is so fun. Then like 3 days later, they're like,
shut down.
No more.
Yeah.
So
as I look at the timeline, and then 2020, the podcast came out.
Correct.
Is that your pivot then?
Yep. Yeah. Once COVID and whatnot happened, we kind of realized we had a good enough footing in food that we wanted to explore that realm of content creation. And, people didn't really know what restaurants were doing and what was going on. And they wanted to, hear those stories still, even though they couldn't go in and experience them. So we launched the podcast in May of 2020. And that just went so well that as soon as things started to relax a little bit, we launched the magazine in January of 2021.
So what is it like to put a physical magazine together? Some people say print is dead. I love a magazine.
Yeah. Well, when we were concepting out this book, same kind of thing. Like print is dead. Everybody wants to go digital. So
I don't believe them.
I don't.
I mean,
either.
I really don't.
I don't. Yeah.
I was thinking about your magazine this morning. I was thinking about just growing up.
Yeah.
And I loved my Tiger Beat. I loved my Cosmopolitan magazine. I still crave it. And so now I turn to our local magazines, our Phoenix magazine, our Arizona Foothills. I turn to A Taste of AZ to see our local stuff that's right around us.
Yeah, and it's something. It's something tangible. It's something you can take on a flight with you. That just it feels good. And one of our greatest strengths that we have is the network of people that we know and that we have relationships with, right? So when we're thinking about doing this book, we meet up with several people. We met up with the guys from the Shop Beer Co. There was a handful of people, Brian Helton, and we were like, hey, we're thinking about doing this. Like, what is your feedback? And I can't remember exactly who it was, but someone was like, yeah, I have experience in publishing. I've kind of been in this world. And he's like, there's absolutely room for print. Print is not dead. He's like, if you do it right, that's the thing. He's like, you have to do it right. And then we did it and we showed him and he's like, yeah, this is good.
So, are these pictures yours, Luke?
So I'm one of the photographers for the magazine. We also employ or work with Grace Stefkowski, who is this cover that you can see here. That cover that she shot is Lotha African Cuisine in downtown Phoenix.
They just won something. I think it was in Phoenix Magazine.
I think they won something at the Foodist. Yeah. I can't remember what it was, but yeah.
Just a very cool spot. And so her photos, as a professional food photographer myself, I say that she's the best in Arizona. So it's an honor to work with her. We also have one of our writers, Marcy Symington, who also does photography. And then our most recent cover over here, these delicious looking taquitos from La Frida in Tucson, that was shot by Isaac Stockton.
Now I got to go to Tucson.
I know. You just got to get a list going of all the places that we feature. We can look through our notes and just give you a list.
That's perfect. Or just, collect the magazines.
Yeah, there you go.
I should probably do that. Let's all do that. Yeah. So where do we find your magazine?
So you can subscribe. So if you go to our website, you can subscribe, and it's $20 a year, $15
correct
shipping.
Yep. So it comes out to like $21, and it's a quarterly magazine. So they'll ship to your door directly every single quarter, and they arrive basically in the first week of the quarter. We also distribute to about 100 businesses across the state where you can find copies for free, but they go very, very quickly. So if you don't want to have to go and search around for one, that's why we, brought in the paid subscription. And then in the future, not too far away, I think we'll probably shift to making them paid everywhere across the board. But, building this from scratch with no brand beforehand, originally the magazine was completely free. You could even get it shipped to you for free. And we changed that about a year ago. And that's really just to fuel more awesome stories, getting to work with better photographers and writers, and just kind of growing the quality and breadth of the content that we're creating.
Well, let's talk about how you made this into something that can sustain and a livelihood as well, because there was that day, we go back to your wife where you said, can we buy that equipment?
Yeah.
What happened? We mentioned, I think, Luke, you are doing your production company as well. But what happened when you had to leave that sales job or whatever role that you were in to pursue this full time? That
was an adventure in itself. Like that was, Luke, I look up to him so much. He's got such a good business mind, and I mean, he's been an entrepreneur since he was born, really. But
that's his vibe.
I think you were 14 when you started your t-shirt company, right?
Yeah, but a much more funny story is when I was in, I think, 3rd grade. I took a bouncy ball and broke it up into little pieces and called them bouncing rocks. And I got in trouble at school because I was selling them for like quarters and stuff like that, just broken up pieces of bouncy ball. And they pulled me in and they're like, you can't do that, man. You can't sell stuff. And I'm like, this is what you should be teaching kids in school. This is not intuition, but ambition right here.
Yes. Oh, that's hilarious.
So I was just kind of working, I was trying to find the job. Like I was trying to find
Arizona.
In Arizona. Yep. I worked at University of Phoenix for like 9 years. I was an academic advisor. And it was a really great role. My role was to help students who had dropped out and had, 2 or 3 classes left, help them get back in and finish. So through that, I got a lot of training on phone conversations and interviewing people, right? Like trying to find their motivation. So when I started doing interviews on podcasts, I realized, I'm like, oh, wow, I learned all this stuff at University of Phoenix. But I stopped there to go to a sales job, like a commission-based sales job. And all these people that were, teammates of mine at University of Phoenix had left and gone to this company. They were making a lot of money. and I did horrible. Like I was second to last in the company before I quit. And my manager at the time was great. He's like, dude, he's like, you have this opportunity. He's like, you're starting to build this thing. He's like, something, the universe is telling you to get the heck out of here. So I, for a while, I taught kind of a crazy thing. I did a thing called VIP Kid, where I taught kids in China English, through like a Zoom session,
oh my gosh.
like 4 a.m. It was that bridge job to help me, go from, kind of getting some little extra income while I can pursue this thing full time.
Right.
So April 25th of 2018, I quit my job, and my wife was behind me 100% and has been ever since. Yeah. So that's when it became, I quit the job in April, and I was with a previous business partner with a previous company. And then that kind of fell apart pretty quickly. And I'm like, what do I do now? And
Luke
then
came running
this
up to your
guy came.
podcast.
Yeah.
Hero.
Yeah. But that's the thing. I think that was the thing that I needed, because I was trying to be a creative. I was trying too much to just like, the creativity and the art or whatever things I'm creating are going to take me.
Pay the bills.
Yeah, but you got to have the business sense. And he's got so much business sense, and I've learned so much from him. So now, I wanted to write, I wanted to do photography, I wanted to do these things, but he helped me realize I don't really want to do those things. I like the idea of it, but I see the work that he puts into it of lighting photos and editing photos and all of that stuff. And I realized that my gift is people, like working directly with people and kind of building our business and building our kind of the revenue side of the business, because
so where does that come from? Is that from the ads in the magazine?
Advertisers. Yep. So we have advertisers in the magazine. We now have, with him and his team, they've built up our website. So our web traffic is really good. Our email newsletter is really good. Our podcast is really taking off. So we're utilizing all of those as advertising platforms for these local businesses, and so that's been the big piece of it, has been selling the advertisements in the magazine. And now we're really starting to get into the podcast sponsorship and all that. But then we had our festival. The festival was like, that was the one that really was kind of took us to that next level.
So you had your first one, in 2024?
Yep, January 27th.
January.
Yeah.
And then how did that go? How many different businesses did you have? It was over at Talking Sticks?
Yeah, Salt River Fields. Yeah, they have a beautiful kind of an outdoor event space. Sure. Yeah, and we'd set up at their Barrels, Bottles, and Brews beer festival before. That's a lot of bees there.
Know, but my girlfriends and I would always go.
Yeah,
and it's back in November as well.
Is it?
Yeah.
Probably my favorite beer festival in Arizona. Great.
Yeah. Well, we noticed that they treated the vendors really well. The experience was great because there's these big huge beer festivals and they're fun, but there's sometimes they're so spread out.
Yeah.
You talk to somebody like, oh man, I didn't even know you guys were at this festival. Like, oh yeah, we were set up way over here. So Salt River Fields has it really, really intimate. And there were so many things we liked about it.
Yeah.
They were so good to the vendors. They're helping people move their equipment, setting up their tents, making sure they have enough ice, making sure they have it. So the vendors enjoyed the event as much as the festival goers.
Perfect.
So we approached them. We're like, hey, we're thinking about kind of getting into the event space. We'd love to kind of get your feedback. And I think it was pretty quick. They were like, would you guys want to partner with us? And we're like, we would. We would,
like
yes.
that word. Partner. Okay, well, we're in. So what was that like to throw your first festival? How many businesses were there? What did people experience when they went?
We had about 40... in the low 40s, food and drink vendors.
Yeah.
And that's kind of what we brought to the table. And that's what Salt River Fields valued, was like, hey, you guys you have the connections and you have the friends and you have the partnerships and, these people that they're going to tell us no. Like we don't, they're not going to just come to any festival. So we brought that to the table of like, we can get, Don Ruggiero from, Hush Public House and Fire at Will, and we can get Adam Allison, and we can get, all these places. And I didn't say it that confidently. Oh, we'll get that. We're going
to get you all the big names.
Yeah.
Don't you worry.
Yeah.
But you did.
But we did. We did. Yeah.
That's awesome.
And we just kind of set it up in a way that was, was very appreciative of the vendors that are being part of it.
You're not another number.
Yeah,
We're happy you're here.
exactly.
They're pillars. As you think of a shopping mall, the anchors, you have the anchors that are there, and people are going to see those people and see Dom and et cetera.
Yeah, and then they, as that list started building, as we'd ask more people, like, well, who's already on board? They're like, oh, we got these guys. These guys are like, oh, we got to be there for sure, So yeah, we had about 40, 45 vendors. It's a sampling event, so that's something we do a little different too. I think is one ticket price, and you get unlimited food samples, and then like 15 drink samples. And so each of the places had like a little bite. Like Chula, I think they had a little ceviche, right?
I believe so, yes.
And then they had a little cocktail. So some places like Chula, across the pond, Don Ruggiero with it's cast iron concepts. It's like all his concepts, but he had a brisket taco with a tequila drink, and it was just like samples, so people could go around. And my father-in-law nailed it. He's like, this, I love this. He's like, because he lives in like Sun City or somewhere way out there. He's like, I don't ever get downtown. I don't ever get to Scottsdale. He's like, but I want to try all these places. So here I am. Yeah. I get to try something from Pala. I get to try something from
and meet the chef. Out there.
Yeah, exactly. So
it was really intended to be an upscale and intimate food and beverage experience, and that was something that I'd be lying if I said we weren't worried about a little bit, because you imagine like Adam Allison, for example, he has a food truck, Brightside Burgers, that is now stationed at Cider Core, and he makes the best like upscale comfort food that I've ever had before. He comes up with flavor combinations, like he did a French onion soup burger, so you dip the burger in the French onion soup. Just incredible and playful. And he said he served over 1,000 burgers, and they also did cocktail samples. And his was the only line that was a little bit extended. And I think, burgers are one of those things that it doesn't seem like it would take that much longer to cook, but when you're doing that many samples, it really does. And so we know that they operate on a very high level, but the thought was, is it going to be impossible for them to show up and do things at the level that they're doing in their restaurants? And that was just ignorance, I guess, on my part, because every single vendor that showed up, whether they were serving cocktails or beer or wine, they all brought their A game. I mean, Across the Pond was there. They are Tales of the Cocktail Award winners, which is one of the most prestigious cocktail awards nationally. They brought a cocktail and some sushi. That's one of my favorite spots around town. It was delicious. It was as delicious as it would have been in the restaurant, but you get to enjoy it in this beautiful setting at Salt River Fields where, where they were positioned specifically. You just turn to the left of their booth and you're looking down into the perfectly maintained outfield, which is a very cool experience. But the rest of the area was on kind of their east lawn is what we call it. So it's kind of off the freeway. They have a nice big courtyard area. There's a waterfall. There's grass. There's trees. It's not just a food festival that's in a big wide open field. It really almost has like a sense of Arizona place because you got the mesquite trees around you. And we had a local band, the Hourglass Cats. Shout out to them. They're incredible. We had a 4-piece band, I think it was, with the trombone and everything, and it just infused so much energy and so much Arizona, if you will, into the event. And we thank the vendors so much because they really did such an incredible job. And it's quite a long day for them, I imagine, but every single one of them at the end of it seemed like they had a good time. And to kind of piggyback off of what Eric said, one of the vendors even specifically mentioned, we were almost a little offended, she said it jokingly, because almost no one knew about our spot. But that's exactly what they wanted out of it, right? Is for people that didn't know about them before to taste their food and go, wow, this is incredible.
Why have I never been here before?
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Oh, wow. Okay, so when's the next one? Hello.
January 25th, 2025.
Mark your calendars.
Yep.
Everyone be ready for that one. Are you courting people already right now?
Mm-hmm.
Do you have any names you want to pitch that have
we got
signed on?
Saucy Luke back. Saucy Luke, barbecue guy. When last year when we promoted it, we actually came here to the studio, but we were in the back parking lot.
We let you in the building this time.
Yeah.
No, you let us around the building, around the back
This
side.
time they let us.
This time, yeah.
You just ask for me next time. You'll get in the AC.
All right, cool. But yeah, so we got Saucy Luke back on board. Choco Flaco, Chula Seafood is back on board. Adam Allison's going to be back on board. So yeah, we're bringing back a lot of the ones that we had, and we're adding some new ones too. So it's
Stay
exciting.
Stay tuned, as they say.
Yeah.
Yeah, definitely follow us on social media for kind of updates on that. And our email newsletter is another great place. But yeah, tickets are on sale for that now, and they are definitely gaining some momentum already, which is exciting for us. It really kind of, makes it clear that we got a lot of work to do to bring it back and make it better, because that's what we want to do. We want to, bring back some of the heavy hitters, but bring in plenty of new, fresh folks to serve up some delicious food.
For sure.
Yeah, we do demos too. That's one thing I want to throw in too. Is like last year we did a demo. So like Saucy Luke, he did a barbecue sauce demo. So we had a stage, mic'd him up and everything. So there's a seating area, and he showed people how to make his barbecue sauce.
Cool.
And then Chula actually did. Juan, their chef, did like. I don't know, the fillet of fish?
Bigger than that. No, he took a full-size ahi tuna. So, I mean, the thing must have been like well over 100 pounds, and cut the whole thing up and basically showed everyone this is how we prepare fish like this for sashimi or whatever else we're going to make with it.
Yeah.
Which was incredible, seeing him flip that thing around and do that. And then, you can go over and try their food, and then, maybe 5 to 10 minutes away, you can go to their Greyhawk location, or even down south from there, you can go to their, I think it's off of McDowell.
Yeah.
And if you've not been to Chula Seafood before, they are probably the premier seafood provider in Arizona. There's a handful of other really good people, but Chula, I mean, they have a fishery and connections to fishers out in San Diego. They catch the fish. They focus on, sourcing not only the best, but like they do, is it like hand harpooning? I don't know exactly how they describe it, but they focus on doing it in a sustainable way that shows respect for the animal, and then also, plays into the quality side of it as well. They bring that over here, and so you can basically get access to the same quality of fish that the finest restaurants in Phoenix are using, because Chula supplies a lot of those places.
Yeah, that place is great. The clam chowder is a winner.
I've never had the clam chowder. I always get the same thing. I always get the California burrito.
Really?
Yeah.
Well, I need to venture out and have other things.
Me too. Me too. I
Their
promise I
specials
will
are
if you do.
incredible.
Yes.
Yeah.
I did. We went a couple weeks ago, and they had loaded ahi taquitos, and I still don't even know exactly what I ate, but it was the most generous portion of ahi, and it was just incredible. Chef Juan, who did the demo, leads their culinary program, and everything he puts on a plate is just fantastic.
Yeah.
So what would you want to tell someone who's looking at you, they think, I'd like to do something like this, a challenge, something that you had to overcome with going into business on your own?
That's a great question. We talked a little bit earlier about, is print dead? I don't think print is dead by any means. I wouldn't be so invested in it if I felt that way, but it's a much more complicated equation. We kind of consider ourselves in between the line of like a traditional news media print agency and kind of the new age influencer. That's why we have a lot of digital focus. But we also knew the plan was never to just create the magazine and post some social media stuff and that be that. That's why we brought in the book, which is, the magazine is paid now, but the book is a little bit different in that way, that it was always paid. We never were giving beer books out for free. We actually have another a book project that we'll announce here pretty soon on this podcast. But
on this podcast right now, what is this project? What
is
is it?
She's like, you're not waiting.
Breaking
Yeah. The breaking announcement is we are doing 100 must-visit Arizona restaurants, breweries, bars, and more. So it's really a collection of a lot of our favorite places across the state. It includes places like Foray up in Flagstaff, which just got a James Beard nomination.
Yep.
Incredible stuff that they're putting on their plates for breakfast and lunch, to Hush Public House and that group, down into Tucson, and really trying to capture the breadth and variety of Arizona food and beverage. And so you'll be able to find, fine dining places like The Farm at South Mountain, which
Wrigley Mansion.
Yeah, Wrigley Mansion. Those places are, the pinnacle of Arizona dining in some sense, to, more hole-in-the-wall places, or there'll even be a few coffee shops, cocktail bars, somewhere like Highball, for example, that maybe doesn't serve food, but if you are someone who likes to enjoy an alcoholic beverage, specifically cocktails, if you've not been to Highball before, it's a must-visit spot, if you will.
You feel like you're in Chicago or New York City in there.
Yeah.
I mean, all of a sudden, I feel like you're in this wonderful elevated experience.
Yeah.
It really is. I mean, the way that people across Arizona have been able to capture so many different things. Arizona is truly a melting pot of cultures. I was doing a podcast down at Harumi Sushi in downtown Phoenix, a place that's been there for a very, very long time. Kind of one of the, initial people to bring Asian culture in the way that they did to Phoenix. And now they've moved into a newer building. They've evolved kind of what they're doing and brought it to the next level. it is incredible whether you're looking for Mexican food or Asian food or African food. Arizona really has it all. And even like, Eric has transitioned from enjoying alcoholic beverages to not enjoying them at all, or, not drinking them at all, I guess, because they still
drink them,
taste
but I don't
delicious.
enjoy them. No, I'm just kidding. I don't.
But like, the mocktails we were talking before the
Incredible,
podcast
yeah.
over at Century Grand, I mean, their cocktails are unbelievable. They do not hold any punches when it comes to their mocktails. I mean, they spend hours and hours and hours creating from scratch their own non-alcoholic spirits because they haven't, found something out there on the market that really hits the nail on the head for them. And so they create drinks that you'd have no idea is a mocktail, incredibly nuanced. And, $16 for a mocktail might sound expensive, but with the level that they're doing it at and the way their experience exists, I mean, they are really one of the most well-liked and well-respected bars in Arizona, but that goes to a national scale as well.
Yeah.
People tap
Global
on...
even, I think.
Yeah. People tap on them all the time for their knowledge and expertise, and for very good reason.
All right, guys, as we wrap up, what are you liking in Arizona? What are you reading in Arizona? What are you drinking in Arizona? What are you doing in Arizona? What are you loving right now?
I am, without, drinking alcohol, I'm really digging NA drinks, right? So, like, I'm kind of exploring. I'm getting more and more into desserts and stuff too.
So you shifted the focus.
Yeah. Well, so like normally I'd have a beer before dinner and then have dinner and then have another beer. But now it's like I'll do a soda water with lime before, and then I'm like, all right, I ate my dinner and now I'm gonna get that cheesecake or I'm gonna get that apple crumble. So I've been digging into desserts a lot more. Something just quick and easy for me. I love the dulce de leche. Is that how you say it?
Dulce de leche.
Yeah, the salted caramel milkshake from the Stand.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, so I get that milkshake with the Stand burger and their fries. Like that's my favorite like drive-through go-to.
I sat in the parking lot. We had to pull over
Yeah.
and take a look at that burger because it looks like a commercial.
Yeah.
That's the best looking burger.
Beautiful. And
Smoked.
it
It was
tastes
so
good. But yeah, like mocktails. Like Highball has great mocktails. Century Grand has great mocktails. But then there's a brand, Choco Flaco. They were at our festival, and they make really good canned cocktails. But now they're starting to do canned NA cocktails.
I didn't know that.
Yeah. So
awesome.
they've been working on it for a while. I don't know. I have to reach out to them and say,
Was
hey,
that
dudes.
breaking news?
No, I don't know. Sorry, Chuck and Steve and
out
Eric.
now.
But so yeah, I mean that's because I love beverages. I just love drinks.
Yeah.
Simply Soda or what is it? What's the
Simply Soda's one. There's also Big Marble.
Big Marble
Yeah,
does
they
some
make
great
their-
sodas.
Yep.
All right,
Yep.
Luke, what are you loving in AZ right now?
I'm a big sushi guy, so my go-to spot is across the pond. They were at the festival, and we had talked about them a little bit earlier, but their cocktail program, extremely impressive. Their sushi, their list is a little bit more, it's kind of smaller than you might expect at some sushi places, but the quality is top-notch. Uchi just opened in downtown, like Old Town Scottsdale, and they're not necessarily Arizona-based, but they're doing great things over there. I've been to that spot several times. To piggyback off of Eric's dessert mention, JL Patisserie, that place is one of my favorites.
So good.
I start every single morning with some espresso from Press Coffee. Their stuff is wonderful. And then really whatever I get to experience in the magazine, I find myself often wanting more of it. We've got this cover of Don Guerra of Barrio Bread. If you're a bread, his stuff is incredible. When I was in there, he was doing a cheddar and chiltepine loaf, and the smell inside that bakery was absolutely incredible. So, the list of everything in A Taste of AZ, I try almost all of it, and I like almost all of it.
You have to. It's research, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Well,
For sure.
thank you, gentlemen,
Thank
for
you.
being here. As we
Yeah.
wrap up, I'm going to reach for this Simple Machine Beer collab with A Taste of AZ because, yes, you can drink A Taste of AZ as well. Thanks, guys.
Cheers.
Yeah.
Thanks for listening to Jamie's Local Love, the podcast. I'm your host, Jamie Soretta. Our technician is Tom Heidinger. Our editors are Lorraine Shearing and Gina Coy. Do you know a business worthy of some local love? Email me at jsoretta@azfamily.com. Follow us at facebook.com/Soretta and Instagram @Soretta News. Make sure to subscribe and give us a 5-star review, please. And tell your friends about the podcast and the businesses we feature to show your local love. You can find us on Apple, YouTube, Spotify, Amazon Music, and anywhere you get your podcasts.
Jaime's Local Love, an Arizona's Family Originals podcast.